Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're mapping out the modern cyber threat landscape. You know, when we think about cyber threats, it's so easy to just picture a single faceless hacker in a dark hoodie typing away in a basement somewhere. But the reality? Well, it's a much more complex, incredibly diverse, and rapidly escalating spectrum of actors. So who is actually behind the screen? That's the big question we need to answer today. Because the attackers probing networks right now, they can literally be anyone. We're talking absolute novices just copying and pasting code all the way up to heavily funded nation-states orchestrating massive coordinated campaigns. Understanding this spectrum and exactly how these threats escalate is absolutely crucial.
Section 1. The Cyber Threat Landscape.
To really grasp this escalation, we gotta look at how an active intrusion actually takes shape, right? Regardless of their skill level, all threat actors generally have the same basic intent: to compromise the confidentiality, integrity, or availability of a system. And this three-step pipeline brilliantly illustrates how they pull it off: the adversary, their infrastructure, and the victim. As defenders, breaking the chain right in the middle at step 2, disrupting that infrastructure, well, that's often our absolute best chance to stop an attack dead in its tracks before it ever reaches the target.
Section 2. Amateurs, activists, and criminals.
All right, starting at the absolute base of our escalation arc, we've got the unskilled attacker, often called a script kiddie. These guys lack technical depth, so they rely heavily on freely available, pre-written code. And while they're mostly thrill seekers just chasing online clout, they matter heavily in the real world. Why? Because for a security operations center, they represent a massive, and I mean massive, volume of pure noise that analysts have to endlessly sift through just to find the real targeted threats. Moving up the ladder, we run into the hacktivist. Because their main motivation is social change or a political ideology, their tactics look very different. I mean, they aren't trying to be stealthy. They want to make a really loud public statement. So this means they typically lean on highly disruptive techniques. Think massive denial of service attacks or widespread website defacements, all just to grab headlines and force a conversation.
Then we hit a huge operational shift with organized crime syndicates. We are definitely not talking about thrill seekers or political protesters anymore. These are highly centralized, corporate-style enterprises. We're talking HR departments, performance reviews, the whole shebang. Their motivation? Purely financial. In fact, cybercrime is a multi-trillion-dollar illicit industry, which means these actors are incredibly well-funded and possess a staggering level of technical sophistication.
Let's take a look at how this all builds across these different groups. When you map this out, a really clear correlation emerges. Script kiddies, they operate on super low resources just for pure recognition. Hacktivists run on ideology with highly variable funding. But the second that motivation shifts to pure financial gain with cybercriminals, the resource and capability levels absolutely skyrocket. The threat capability scales aggressively right alongside that shift in motivations.
Section 3. The Threat from Within.
Now here's a crazy plot twist in our escalation arc. Sometimes the absolute greatest danger is already sitting inside the building. Insider threats bypass your multi-million-dollar perimeter defenses completely, simply because they already have authorized access. Think about your system administrators or folks with high security clearances. Whether it's a disgruntled employee planting a logic bomb out of revenge or just a well-meaning employee making a really devastating configuration error, the potential blast radius is massive. Actually, it's terrifying because it can take months to even realize an insider has gone rogue. And speaking of internal risks and well-meaning mistakes, we've got to talk about shadow IT. This usually pops up when business units try to move faster than security policies allow. Imagine an engineer just spinning up a new virtual machine or a storage bucket in the cloud to host a new app because, hey, it's fast and easy. The problem? They often aren't patching or monitoring that system for vulnerabilities. It introduces exponential risk, as highly sensitive corporate data just ends up sitting in unapproved, unmonitored cloud services, basically waiting to be compromised.
Section 4. Nation-states and APTs.
All right, now we are entering the absolute top tier, the Advanced Persistent Threat, or APT. Usually backed by nation-states or actual governments, these entities have practically unlimited funding. They leverage classified, covert intelligence, incredibly rare zero-day exploits, and, most importantly, extreme patience. They don't just breach a network to make a quick buck. They establish footholds and stay completely hidden for months, sometimes even years. Their end goal? To siphon off top-tier intellectual property, or quietly position themselves deep within a system for future disruption.
So the crucial takeaway here is the stark disparity across this entire spectrum. On one end, you have an unskilled attacker scraping together copy-paste code for internet clout with barely any budget. But on the exact opposite end, you've got a nation-state actor with staggering funding, custom-built zero-day infrastructure, and the full backing of military intelligence for warfare and espionage. Honestly, they exist in completely different universes when it comes to their capabilities and overall threat level.
Section 5. The Cyber Warfare Reality.
So we're now moving way out of standard data theft and espionage, right into the very grave reality of state-sponsored digital combat. Cyber warfare is no longer some science fiction movie plot or a political taboo. Governments actively target critical infrastructure today. We're talking power grids, water treatment facilities, and communication networks. The goal here is to cause kinetic, physical chaos, severely impairing a nation's ability to even function or defend itself. And this is often happening right alongside traditional armed conflict.
To really ground this warfare concept in reality, let's look at the timeline of the 2015 Ukraine power grid incident. Prior to 2015, conflict was largely defined by traditional physical combat. But then, in 2015, a highly sophisticated cyber attack was launched directly on critical infrastructure. The aftermath? Hundreds of thousands of people were instantly left totally in the dark, without electricity in the dead of winter. It's widely considered one of the first truly successful cyber attacks on a power grid, proving the devastating, totally disruptive physical power of digital weapons.
And that brings me to this really striking quote from our source material. The digital landscape can be used as a battlefield. This is the core truth of modern security. Engineers and defenders today, you have to fundamentally understand that you aren't just protecting databases from being leaked anymore. You must actively prepare for breaches and attacks that aim to control, sabotage, or completely take down the essential critical infrastructure that our entire society relies on every single day.
So, I'm going to leave you with this final vital question to think about. Are you prepared to face the digital battlefield? Understanding the motivations, the resources, and the tactics of everyone from a noisy script kiddie all the way to a well-funded nation-state is the absolute first step in defending against them. Because whether it's just a simple insider mistake or a highly patient, advanced, persistent threat, you have to treat them all with respect and readiness. Keep learning, keep adapting, and I'll see you in the next Explainer.